Čia žinių radijas.
Atspari visuomenė.
Laidą Atspari visuomenė remia Medijų rėmimo fondas.
Sveiki, žinių radijo klausytojai, eteryje laida Atspari visuomenė, prie mikrofono aš Lukas Oželis. Ir man tikrai smagu pranešti, kad šiandienos laidoje turime ypatingą svečią, Lenkijos Senato vicemaršalą Michalą Kaminskį. Jis yra ilgametis Lenkijos politikas ir per praėjusius rinkimus kartu su Donaldu Tusku perėmė valdžią iš Jaroslavo Kačinskio Teisės ir Teisingumo partijos. Tiesa, šiandien pabandysime kalbėti taip plačiau, apie platesnės temas, aišku, paliesime truputėlį ir Lenkiją, jos vidinę politiką, bet toks pagrindinis turbūt siūlas šitos mūsų diskusijos bus apie vakarų vidinės įtampos, kažkokius tai nesutarimus ir kaip tai paveikia, bendrą įtaką pasaulinėje geopolitikos arenoje. Su ponu Michalu Kaminskiu mes kalbėsimės anglų kalba. Tuo tarpu mes taip pat studijoje turime užsienio reikalų komiteto pirmininką, Seimo narį Žygimantą Pavilionių, kuris be abejo prisidės ir savo mintimis, bet taip pat mums padės išversti pono Kaminskio mintis. Tad galime pradėti. Aš, kaip ir minėjau, kalbėsiu su ponu Kaminskiu angliškai. Mr. Kaminski, thank you for joining us on this program.
Thank you very much, and I really feel honored to have this opportunity to talk to you, and I'm really happy being again in Lithuania.
Ponas Kaminskis labai džiaugiasi, kad pas mus atvyko jau ne pirmą kartą ir tikrai pasiruošęs kalbėti visom temom.
I want to start talking about the overall situation in the West, the situation where I think there is so much inner tensions between countries like, European Union and Hungary.
Pokalbį nuo padėties Vakaruose, kuriuose šiuo metu yra daug vidinių įtampų tarp skirtingų šalių, pavyzdžiui, Europos Sąjungos ir Vengrijos, taip pat įtampų šalių viduje. Kaip jūsų manymu mes priėjome tokią situaciją?
Is it like the fault of mainstream parties? Do you think we were ignorant before about the coming problems or threats?
I think that, we are just repeating somehow the same process which occurred in Western civilization in the end of 19th century. What I mean? The end of 19th century, it was a spread of democracy and spread of press. Free press. And what the owners of the press discovered in the 19th century, that there are two reasons why the people are buying press. Two emotions which are very important for them. One is a social emotion. I don't have money and I won't have more. I'm very unsatisfied with the social position of myself or for my group in the society, so I'm angry. It was the beginning of a socialist press, left-wing press. And the other emotion, which was very useful for selling the press, was a national emotion, nationalistic emotion. So they were two emotions which were ignited by the fact that there were free press in 19th century, which had to, according to the free market, you have to find a niche. And it was very easy to find a niche when you are selling your newspaper addressing the social or national issues. Then it took many years for the Western civilization somehow to appease those emotions, to appease the national emotion, which followed actually with the fascism and with the Nazism in 20s and 30s, or how to settle the social emotions, which also blew up in the form of Soviet Union in 1917. And then, after the Second World War, the Western world somehow accustomed to those emotions, slowed it down, and helped people to accommodate their own emotions, political goals, in a free society. So you have a free democratic right, you have a free democratic left, and you have a mainstream press. And this mainstream press, which is true, fair to say, moved a bit left to the center in the Western world, but this free press was keeping the standards. And what happened in 90s and in 2000s? We have a new democratization of sources of information with internet. And again, what is the most interesting emotion which is now helping to spread your message in the social media? It's again political hate, nationalism, populism, because it's selling you to send your message, to direct your message to the right people in the social media. So again, like in 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, there's freedom of expressions and the lack of mainstream media, because the mainstream media, I don't know if it happened in Lithuania, but it surely happened in the United States, and it surely happened in Poland. The mainstream media didn't play such an important role like they played in 90s and 2000s, when they were able to tell the people what is right and what is wrong. Today, no newspaper, no television station has this right, because if you are right, you have your own right television stations. If you are liberal, you have your liberal television. And they are not interested to address your doubts. They are interested only to address your emotions, and which is leading you also then to making a political decisions according to those emotions. Now we need a time again to appease all this stuff which is connected with this new model of communication in our societies. The big question is that during this previous time, we paid a very high price. We paid the price with Soviet Revolution, with Second World War, with Nazism, with communism. Then we discovered maybe radicalism is not the good way, of solving the problems. After the Second World War, when we massive graves, Auschwitz and so on.
Michal, I have to translate it. Aš nesu, aišku, profesionalus vertėjas, bet esmę, Michalas sako, kad istorija sukasi ratais. Maždaug prieš 100 metų, 19 amžiaus pabaigoje, buvo panašus procesai, kai buvo, tik atsirado demokratija, laisva spauda ir jinai pasidalino grubiai šnekant į kairę ir į dešinę. Nacionalizmas, pyktis buvo dešinės pusės, taip sakant, jau stuburas, ir tokia daugiau nepasitenkinimas turtų, socialinė padėtim buvo kairiųjų. Bet po antro pasaulinio karo tragedijų, kurios įvyko dėl šito polarizavimuose, vis dėlto atsirado objektyvi žiniasklaida, profesionalumas, kuris sukūrė tam tikrą balansą. Dabar vyksta tai, kas vyko prieš 100 metų. Iš esmės vėl ne protas, ne profesionalumas, bet emocijos, populizmas, vidinė radikalizacija grįžta į tuos laikus, kuriais baigėsi visi kataklizmai, įskaitant Aušvicai. Ir čia aš jau perfrazuosiu, aš neseniai buvau Aušvice ir Aušvico direktorius pasakė, kad jūs turit labai akylai sekti bet kokios neapykantos protrūkį, nes bet kokia neapykanta anksčiau ir vėliau baigėsi Aušvicais, perfrazuojant Donbasais, okupacijom ir to, ką matome šiuo metu aplink.
So, in your opinion, what are the options for the mainstream media in this changed landscape of media? Yes, when the Facebook, Twitter and
Kokios yra galimybės tradiciniai žiniasklaidai pasikeitusioje aplinkoje, kur socialiniai tinklai kaip Facebookas ar Twitteris yra daug greitesni, tačiau mažiau remiasi faktais? Kokį apskritai matote tolimesnį kelią tradiciniai žiniasklaidai ir bendrą to svarbą?
Like a space for a mainstream media.
I think it's of a crucial importance because we have to find a way how to communicate to the people during the new era of communication, because we are facing a new era of communication. In the beginning of 20th century, when you were a politician, you had enough money to have your political party, you have your own newspaper, you published articles, and you made speeches in parliament. It was the way how to communicate your political agenda to the people. Speeches in the parliament and the articles in the media. It required rhetorics, but also it required a fact-based speeches because you can't talk about anything for hours, yeah? Today, when this message is simplified to 30 seconds, to 1 minute, to a couple of words, yes, indeed, we have to find the way how to communicate a serious political problems in such a shortened way. And on the other hand, we are finding ourselves, which is a paradoxical outcome of this situation, in a place in which people got less information than before, that they are constantly asked by pollsters about very complicated questions. And they are obviously giving those answers. And then politicians, they don't know what to follow. And the simplest possible answer for the politicians, unfortunately, is just to follow the polls. So in the previous time, when you've been a politician, you think how to convince the people to my ideas, how to find the ways to go to the people and to convince them that it's worth to be a conservative or it's worth to be a social democrat or whoever you want. Today, when you are a politician, you are employing the people to search what people like, what they want to hear, and then you are delivering this message. But it's changing the democracy upside down, because this is something, the role of the political class is to present ideas, and the role of the people is to choose from these ideas. We cannot change this when the people are actually choosing the ideas and the politicians are just following it. Because the people are, today they don't have enough information to be well informed about everything. But at the same time, the common society, the Commonwealth, is requiring from the answers from the citizen.
But what you're
on every issue. And the politicians are just abdicating from the role of teaching people, of convincing people. And I'm just to be well understood, I'm not talking that the politicians shouldn't hear the people. Obviously, they should, but the last word belongs to the people, not to the politicians. But the role of politicians is to explain. And the role of the people is to choose from those explanations, which is most suitable for me. But today, the political elite, from left and from right, forgot about it. The only I'm sorry, just to finish. Yeah. The only politicians who are now trying to present something, they're populists. Because they're only ones who are presenting something which looks like an idea. And that's why also they are very attractive. Because at the end of the day, the people expect from the politicians to have an idea. Because that's the reason why you are a politician, not me. Yeah, I'm expecting, that's why you are in the radio and I'm a listener. Because you have to talk to me via radio, not opposite side. And this is the populist politicians, they understood at least this fact. The people, they want to hear the direction from politicians. And they are giving them these directions. And the democratic politicians are constantly asking the people, in which direction should we go? And the people are angry about it. We don't want politicians who are asking us what to do all the time. You are choosing the leader to be a leader.
Na, Michalas labai gražiai išaiškino tą skirtumą tarp tikrų politikų ir populistinių politikų. Tai tikras politikas daro teisingus sprendimus ir daro juos populiariais, įtikina visuomenę, jisai pasiūlo tam tikrą sprendimo būdą ir tada žmonės gali rinktis tarp įvairių sprendimo būdų, kuriuos pasiūlo politikai. Tuo tarpu populistinis politikas, jisai neturi savo sprendimų, jis tiesiog įsiklauso, kas yra populiaru, kas yra populistiška. Ir kadangi jį labai suspaudžia dabartinė socialinės medijos, jis negali išaiškinti savo politikus, jis neturi tam laiko, turi 30 sekundžių atspindėtą emociją, jisai seka paskui rinkėją ir tada rinkėjas iš esmės renkasi pats savo baimės melą, kuris yra aplinkui savo nuomonę, bet jis jau nebeatskiria tos tikrovės nuo savo jausmų.
probably two questions together. You talked in your last sentences about absence of leadership from the politicians. So what is the reason for it? Why do we not have leaders? Is it just...
Porą klausimų kartu. Pabaigoje savo pasisakymo kalbėjote apie lyderių trūkumą politikoje. Ar tai siejate tik su pasikeitusiu tradicinės žiniasklaidos vaidmeniu? Be to, tai, apie ką kalbėjote, atrodo puikiai atskleidžia dabartinės problemas Jungtinėse Amerikos valstijose, kur yra didžiulė visuomenės polarizacija. Tad ar manote, kad turėtume bijoti antros Donaldo Trumpo kadencijos ir kaip reikėtų spręsti šią polarizacijos problemą? Ar sprendimai turėtų ateiti būtent iš politikų?
West America, Europe can solve these problems of polarization. Must it come from politicians, from leaders?
First of all, again, the question is, what will be the teaching point? Previously, the teaching point was the Second World War. And the tragedy of the Second World War, which forced everyone on the Western side to rethink the construction of Europe, the construction of international relations, also the plan for rebuilding Europe, to make Europe a safe and a prosperous place. But it took us a lot of years, and it took us, I mean Western world, because we were excluded from this process, we as Eastern Europeans. But it took Western countries couple of years and the victims of the Second World War. So I hope that in today's world, this moment of reflection will be just after COVID. We just forgot about it, but we still behind us is the big event of COVID, which also changed a lot. And then the war in Ukraine. I hope those two facts will change our attitudes toward the society, the construction of society, because some myths, actually from both sides, liberal and let's say more state-orientated side, just collapsed during the COVID period. From one side, we just saw that just free market cannot solve such problems like pandemic. There are global problems and you need a state action to deal with that. But on the other hand, you saw at least in Poland that again the private health system is much more effective than the state-owned. That the private system is much more effective than the state one, and that this is obvious. But on the other hand, we also show that the state is needed. So we have to rethink. I'm talking now about COVID, both the role of the state and in such things like economy, medicine, so on. And after the war in Ukraine, we have to rethink our attitudes toward totalitarian empires, towards China, towards Russia, and how to compose the new world, which will took the lessons from the past. For us, for Poles and Lithuanians, I think there is a good solution, because we now have to fight for the enlargement. I'm not talking about the very near future, but about the broader perspective. That's our goal, to secure Belarus and Ukraine as our allies in the European Union, and to secure our Polish, Lithuanian, Belarusian and Ukrainian future in the European Union, to re-establish our political commonwealth inside the European Union. That's our goal.
Well, tai Michalas, atsakydamas į klausimą, kodėl nėra šiandien iš tikrųjų tų lyderių, sako, viskas priklauso nuo konteksto, kuriame ta lyderystė kuriama. Dabartinis pasaulis buvo sukurtas po Antrojo pasaulinio karo dramos, kai visi suprato, kad vis dėlto saugi, integruota, klestinti Europą yra atsakymas, kad karo daugiau nebūtų. Dabartinį pasaulį labiausiai nulėmė du įvykiai: COVID tragedija, po kurio reikia permastyti valstybės ir liberalizmo santykį, vien tik tai liberaliais sprendimais, be valstybės įsikišimo akivaizdžiai, kad neįmanoma judėti į priekį, kaip ir vien valstybiniai sprendimai be privačios iniciatyvos nėra efektyvūs, reikia permastyti tą balansą, tai atsiliepia partiniam sistemom, bet ir karas prieš Ukrainą, faktiškai blogio šis autokratinis puolimas prieš demokratinį pasaulį, mes dar neatradome tų instrumentų, kaip visiems mums susitelkti, bet kaip lietuviai ir lenkai, Michalas siūlo, mes turime geriausią sprendimą, tai yra ES ir NATO plėtra. jis daugiau kalbėjo apie Europos Sąjungos plėtrą, jo mėgstamą frazę čia jau interpretuoju, yra kažkada, kai ukrainiečiai ir baltarusiai bus Europos Sąjungos nariai, Žygiai, įsivaizduok, mes būsim 100 milijonų kruvinų žemių tautų, kurios mąstys taip, kaip mes, mūsų protėviai mąstė, ir mes būsim daug didesni negu vokiečiai ir prancūzai. Mes nebijosim tos integracijos. Mūsų interesas bus tolesnė integracija Europoje, nes mūsų blokas bus stipriausias.
Taip, kruvino žemės Timothy Snyderio, čia tokia irgi frazė. Gerai, eikime dabar į žinias, paklausykime jų ir tada grįšime atgal į laidą.
Atspari visuomenė. Laidą Atspari visuomenė remia Medijų rėmimo fondas.
Grįžtame į eterį, laida Atspari visuomenė, prie mikrofono aš, Lukas Oželis. Pasikartosiu, kad šiandien turime ypatingą svečią Michalą Kaminskį, kuris yra ilgametis Lenkijos politikas, dabartinis Lenkijos Senato vicemaršalas. Su juo kalbamės, praktiškai apie viską, apie vakarus, apie žiniasklaidos vietą, apie liberalizmą, kokia vieta valstybės yra ekonomikoje, kitose klausimuose. Dar kartą pasikartosiu, kad kalbame su ponu Kaminskiu angliškai, mums padeda vertėjauti Žygimantas Pavilionis, Seimo narys. Mr. Kaminski, you mentioned just in your last sentences about obviously the lessons that we should probably learn from Ukraine and Russia war.
Jūs minėjote tas pamokas, kurias turėtume išmokti iš Rusijos ir Ukrainos karo. Invazijos pradžioje vakarų politikai pripažino, kad rytų ir centro Europos politikai buvo teisūs, įspėdami kitus dėl Rusijos grėsmės. Akivaizdu, kad požiūris į Rusiją pasikeitė, tačiau ar pasikeitė pakankamai? Ar Europos Sąjungoje egzistuoja aiški strategija Rusijos atžvilgiu, o galbūt vis dar egzistuoja įtampa tarp rytų ir vakarų Europos?
Do you think there is still that inner tension between Eastern Europe and Western Europe?
I think that's one of our goals, is to take this as our task. Polish and Lithuanian task, Swedish task, to actually to set up a new policy towards Russia after the war. We will have a unique chance to set up the limits of this cooperation, the goals of this cooperation, but what I think we would need is to require a free elections in Russia. That's something which is I think that in both cases, Russia and Belarus, it should be very high on our agenda. We don't need from Russia and from Belarus for the moment, nothing more than that. I'm not talking about the war effort, because we also want the territories which they're occupied, but it's not Russian territory. So we don't want nothing else from them than just to hold a free elections, which we will consider free, not they will consider free. And it's the same for Ukraine. That's the thing which is helping us to avoid the situation you mentioned. That again, the Western partners will say, oh, you are very anti-Russian, you don't understand the complex of situation, because you have no arguments against the free elections. You cannot say that you are Russophobe, you are anti-Russian, if only thing you are requiring is to have elections in Russia, means to give Russians right to vote. This simple fact will change the situation in Russia. And it will give us the time. Because what we need, to be very frank, is we need a time to take on board Ukraine, to take on board Belarus, to strengthen their independence, their armies and all this stuff, and then we can, with much more relaxed way, expect the development in Russia. The key to our future concerning Russia relations lays today in Belarus and Ukraine. Without solving the problem of Ukraine and Belarus, there is no sense to talk about Russia. Because the free Russia is possible only Ukraine, after Ukraine and Belarus will be free. Without freeing Belarus and Ukraine, how you can imagine that it will be a free elections in Russia? How you can hold a free election when the country which tried to hold the free election is occupying other country? You know, what means free elections in Russia today? You will have a free elections in Crimea? No. So first of all, we have to win the war. That's the first condition. And then we have to strengthen democracy in Ukraine and Belarus, and then to try to, because it's in our deepest interest, to have a democratic Russia.
Vėlgi, apibendrinamas, atsakydamas į klausimą, kaip galima apjungti vakarus, kad jie mūsų nekaldintų rusofobijom, jisai sako, na visų pirma, reikia laimėti karą, teritorijos turi būti išlaisvintos ir koncentruotis į Ukrainos ir į Baltarusijos, jis pabrėžė, narystę Europos Sąjungoje, nes negali būti laisvų rinkimų Rusijoje, jeigu jie vyksta Kryme, okupuotam Kryme. Ir tai yra kelias į tolesnius reikalavimus, kuriuos taip Lietuva, Lenkija ar net Švedija turi įteikti vakarams, pavyzdžiui, reikalauti tokių pačių laisvų rinkimų Rusijai. Taip, tai yra labai tolimas tikslas, bet tai nėra visiškai rusofobiškas tikslas, tai yra labai normalu leisti rusam spręsti laisvai prieš tai, kai jie palieka okupuotas teritorijas ir kai mes tą laisvę okupuotų teritorijų tvirtiname Europos Sąjungos viduje.
I want to talk also about rising popularity of far-right movements in Europe. We can talk about.
Taip pat norėčiau jūsų paklausti apie kraštutinės dešinės iškilimą. Galima paminėti alternatyvą Vokietijai, Marine Le Pen partiją Prancūzijoje ir, aišku, Viktorą Orbaną Vengrijoje. Jūsų manymu, kokios yra pagrindinės kraštutinių judėjimų populiarumo priežastis? Ar vėl bestumėte pirštą į žiniasklaidą?
The changed media landscape. What is the reason of their popularity?
No, partly, obviously, the change of the media is one of the crucial things in raising the far extremists, right extremists. Because thanks to the new media, far right extremist message is now in the mainstream, indeed. Because it's in the internet. Everything which is in internet today is in the mainstream. And today you have this all anti-Semitic, all far-right bullshit, I'm sorry to say, all over the network. All over the network. And it obviously helps the far-right. But, to be fair, the real problems are also feeding the popularity of the far-right. The immigration. It is a real problem. And Europe has to face this problem. No, we cannot hide it and say, okay, we cannot discuss about immigration because it's a forbidden subject. No, it's not forbidden. And the people are concerned. When the mainstream parties are not addressing the real concerns of the people, the extremists are holding it. And that's the answer. We have to address the concerns the Western citizens have about the immigration, because this is the, I think, main reason of the fear. I see it in Poland, because we don't have such a problem, but we have a fears of it. People they are coming back from Western countries, Western cities, and they're saying, no, we don't want the same in Warsaw. We don't want the same in Wrocław and in Krakow, like they see in the Western countries. So first time in my actually history, there are young Poles who are saying, no, we don't want to live in West. We prefer to live in Poland. You know, when I was young, it was impossible. You know, impossible to say that the life in Poland is better, because even life in the Eastern Germany was better than the life in Poland. So, and today, for example, my daughter, she said, no, I don't want to study in Spain. I want to study in Poland. It changed so much.
Atsakydamas į klausimą, kodėl ultradešinieji ir radikalai kyla, jisai sako, tai nėra tik medijos kaltė, tos socialinės, kadangi, aišku, jinai labai palanki kraštutiniams judėjimams plisti, nes visa interneto erdvė pilna radikalumo, tačiau tai yra ir realios problemos. Jeigu tradicinės partijos nesprendžia realių problemų, pavyzdžiui, imigracijos problemų, tai iššaukia nepasitenkinimą ir sako, net paradoksalu, kai jisai pradėjo kurti nepriklausomą Lenkiją, visi Lenkai norėjo bėgti iš Lenkijos ir slėptis Vakaruose. Dabar ir jo paties duktė ir kiti nemažai jaunų Lenkų grįžta į Lenkiją, nes Lenkijoje nėra tokia bloga situacija su trečiųjų šalių imigrantais kaip Lenkijai.
Do you think that power balance in the European Union will change? Žiūrint į ateitį, kai Ukraina bus Europos Sąjungos dalimi, ar manote, kad galių balansas Europos Sąjungoje pasikeis, kalbant apie santykį tarp vakarų Europos bei rytų ir centro Europos? Do you think also with Ukraine in the EU in the coming years?
It will change the balance, obviously. Already the political and economical power in Europe is moving eastward. It's obvious. Look, economy-wise, Poland overjumped France as a main exporter to Germany. So today, Germany has the main source of import, not from the western side of this country, but from the eastern side. Poland is now number one exporter to Germany, not France. It shows that this center of gravity is moving eastward. When we will have Ukraine and when we will have Belarus, we will have 100 million citizens of 4 countries which had a common history, which have a common interest today, which sharing more the same values, character, and so on. And we will be a real power inside the European Union. If we will not, I don't want to use improper words, if we will not kill the chance. Because Russians will do everything. Russians will do everything to raise conflict between Poles, Lithuanians, Ukrainians, Belarusians, Lithuanians, everyone who is working on these problems, igniting them. He's a Pole, he's a Lithuanian, he's a Belarusian, he's a Ukrainian. He's working in the interest of Russia. Because when we are together, we are unbeatable. Believe me. When we will be together in the European Union as 4 independent states inside the European Union, we will be unbeatable. And we will be the most dynamic and most prosperous in the future part of the European Union. Because we have all we needed. We have the natural resources, we have human resources, and we have the energy. And now what the West is, look what's going on in Ukraine. First time in Europe's history, in EU history, the people are dying for being a member of European Union. It, by itself, this simple fact we changed European Union. Because first time are people effectively fighting for being member of Union and giving their lives for it. It will not have an immediate effect in 1 or 3 years even, but long term, everything is working against Russia's interest. We just have to hold. We have to hold, because the collapse of the Russian Empire is sooner than we think, but we have to hold.
Labai gražiai pasakoja, šiek tiek primindamas senus laikus, kadangi Michalas Kaminskis buvo iš esmės amžinatilsio Lecho Kačinskio prezidentūros vadovas, tai jau tada, aš priedu šiek nuo savęs, kai Adamkus ir Kačinskis veikė kartu, į mus žiūrėjo labai pagarbiai Prancūzija ir Vokietija, jau tada tarėsi su mumis prieš pradedant tarti su visom Europos Sąjungos šalim, bet dabar jisai sako, mes turime tik laikytis vieningai ir kantriai. Jeigu mes nepadarysim nesąmonio, neleisime rusams mūsų supriešinti tarpusavę, lietuvių ir lenkų, lietuvių ir baltarusių, baltarusių ir lenkų, lenkų ir ukrainiečių, šita ilgalaikė pergalė, mūsų vienybė, yra tiesiog, mes esame nenugalima jėga, kuri ateina ateityje. Rusija pralaimės anksčiau, negu mes visi manome, jeigu mes tą vienybę išlaikysime.
Lastly, I want to talk about Poland, of course. There was so much talk about...
Galiausiai norėčiau pakalbėti apie Lenkijos vidaus politiką. Daug buvo kalbėta apie Lenkijos judėjimą nuo demokratijos, tačiau paskutiniai parlamento rinkimai turbūt nuramino daugelį žmonių. Kaip Lenkija pasikeitė nuo rinkimų?
How has Poland changed since the election? Did it change?
Oh yeah, it's changed. We have I think first of all, we had a most significant turnout during the elections from the start of our democracy. So the legitimacy of a new government, of a new majority is really huge, the largest in the Polish history. I am not, keen to criticize Polish politicians being abroad, but I think that the people feel now relief that Poland is stable in the European Union. We are not repeating in our internal language. We are not repeating the language of Russian propaganda. We are not anti-European. And I think that's huge changes, and I hope also that we will soon move forward because Poland will take the presidency in the EU, and I think that the issues we are discussing today, like Belarus and Ukraine, will be main topics of our presidency.
Na, atsakant, ar Lenkija pasikeitė, jis be abejonės tuo labai džiaugiasi, nes pirmą kartą toks rinkėjų skaičius atėjo ir suteikė šitam pokyčiui tokį legitimumą prie visą istoriją. Galų gale Lenkija nekartoja, kaip jisai sako, Rusijos propagandos klišių, nėra antieuropietiška ir atsiminkime, kad Lenkija netrukus perims Europos Sąjungos pirmininkavimą ir visą tai, apie ką mes šiandien šnekame, ar tai būtų Ukrainos pergalė, Ukrainos buvimas mūsų šeimoje ar Baltarusijos ateitis, bus vieni svarbiausių temų būsimo Lenkijos pirmininkavimo.
We still have a few minutes. I just want to ask you, in your opinion...
Turime dar kelias minutės. Norėčiau jūsų paklausti, kokiu būdu Europa, kuri šiuo metu yra spaudžiama ir Amerikos iš vienos pusės ir Kinijos iš kitos, turėtų judėti toliau. Kaip Europa gali išlikti nepriklausomų ir stiprių žaidėjų pasaulinėje arenoje?
Yeah, that's one of the questions which is also connected with the enlargement. Actually, my simple plan for the enlargement is we will say to our Western friends, you will give us enlargement and we will give you a federal Europe. Because with the federal Europe, with Ukraine and Belarus on board, we shouldn't be afraid of having a federal Europe because we will be 100 million bloc in this. We will be the strongest one. We will be stronger than France, than Germany and than Italy. And we will have common interests. And other countries will join us. The Baltic states will join us. Romania will join us. That's so. And if we want to have a common policy of European Union, yes, we have to give more power to Brussels. But giving more power to Brussels doesn't mean that we will not control it. If you will give more power to Brussels, we will also have, and it's absolutely possible in the federal assignments, that you are strengthening the control role of parliament, of the national governments. It's doable, but we need, Henry Kissinger in 70s, he asked, where is the phone number of the foreign minister of Europe? And still today, the foreign minister for Europe is rather a commentator and coordinator than the real world leader. And we need a foreign minister of Europe who will be a real world leader. But behind such a foreign minister, behind leaders of the European Union, should stay an institution which is powerful by itself. Today, Europe is not as powerful as we think. Europe indeed is very weak. The European institutions, the only democratic institution is European Parliament, and it's giving more and more importance. But all other institutions are weak and are not as much independent from the national states as we want it to be. Because the people are afraid that they are saying, if you have a federal state, federal Europe, the big countries will be dominant. It's not true. Only federal institutions giving us the possibility to control Germany and France. Only through federal institutions we can influence the politics of. If the Germany will be independent from Europe, you will have sooner or later a Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact. We don't have a Ribbentrop-Molotov because Germany is in the European Union. And there is no chance that it will be a Ribbentrop in the European Union. There is no chance to be a Ribbentrop. And this is always our main danger. Ribbentrop. Because that's the line I'm repeating all the time. Molotov still exists. The Molotov in Kremlin still exists. And he's just waiting for the Ribbentrop. To make a deal over our heads. They are always ready in Moscow. The only lacking part of this deal is the partner in Western. So that's why we are so keen to have European Union, because in the European Union it will be no Ribbentrop.
Michalas labai gražiai pabaigė, siūlydamas nebijoti tolesnio gilinimo, nes būsima Europos Sąjungos plėtra gilins ir federalizuos Europą, kuri nėra pakankamai stipri. Ir tai yra, sako, mums labai naudinga, nes atsiminkite, kad mes tas blokas 100 milijonų, jeigu išeis ir Ukraina, ir net ir Baltarusija priimti Europos Sąjungą, būsime didesni ir už Italiją, ir už Vokietiją, ir už Prancūziją. Ir galimybė paveiktas didžiasias šalis yra būtent federalizacija, stipresnis Briuselis. Bet to nepamirškite dar vieno fakto. Šiame pasaulyje Molotovas iki šiol gyvas, jis yra visada gyvas, jis tik laukia savo Ribbentropo. Ir, išširusi Europą suteiks tą galimybę atsirasti Ribbentropui. Federalizuota, stipri Europa, naikina galimybę būti Ribbentropui. Ir todėl mums tai yra pavojingiausias dalykas, kad vėl atsiras šita ašis. Stipri, gili, pagilinta Europa ir įsiplėtusi Europa galutinai panaikina šią grėsmę, nes Molotovas liks bent jau kurį laiką.
Mr. Kaminski, thank you for your time.
Ačiū.
Ačiū taip pat ponui Žygimantui Pavilioniui, Seimo narys, kuris puikiai padėjo išversti pono Kaminskio mintis. Laidą vedžiau aš, Lukas Oželis. Likite su Žinių radiju.
Atspari visuomenė. Laidą Atspari visuomenė remia Medijų rėmimo fondas